Welcome to the show, Eliseo Cheo Torres. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be
It's
here.
okay. No worries. Cheo, thank you for being here. I was just talking to you before and how excited I am to have you on to kick off our Dia De Los Muertos series here on Nurses and Hypochondriacs. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a professor at the University of New Mexico.
I am. I'm an administrator. Well, I was an administrator, and I just retired recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Congrats.
And a professor. I continue teaching my classes, 3 credit classes, Curanderismo classes in the fall, the spring, and the summer. And then I also offer a free Coursera courses, 4 of them online. And I've been at New Mexico since 1995.
That's amazing. So how did you get into Curanderismo and also teaching at the University of New Mexico, which I think is amazing?
Well, thank you. Well, I grew up with a lot of the rituals and medicinal plants, and my mother was not a curandera, but she should have been one. There were 6 in our family, and
Wow.
we lived in a rural area, and she used to tell us, don't you dare get sick, and if you do, I'll be your doctor. And she was, kept us healthy, but she could not tell me really why she did the things she did. She said, well, I learned this from your grandmother and she from your great-grandmother, until I was in college. And one of my mentors, Dr. Stanley Bittinger, a sociologist, took us on trips to Mexico, all over Mexico. I was with him for 20 years, traveling all over, all the way to Guatemala by car. That was when Mexico was safe to travel by car. And on one of our trips, he said, we can't really go very far into Mexico. We're going to go to a curandero festival.
Wow. I
said, what? He said, yes. It'll be a couple of hours from the border, from the Texas border. And says it's a Fidencista festival in the town of Espinazo, close to Monterrey, Mexico. So we went, a group of students and some faculty by car, and we got to this village out in nowhere called Espinazo. Espinazo is the name of a backbone of an animal, and then there's a range of mountains that looks like a backbone of an animal, and that's where the town is at. It's a village where the famous Niño Fidencio lived, who died in 1938. And they've had a festival, 2 festivals a year, one in October, one in March. And I believe one of them is when he was born and the other one when he died, similar to Christmas and Easter. So people have made a folk saint out of Niño Fidencio. He's not a canonized saint, but he's a saint of the people.
Right. He's the Santo Niño, right?
Well,
is it the same?
No, it's different. They call him Niño Fidencio out of endearment, but the man was in his 30s and still call him Niño Fidencio. And he's not well known in most areas in the US, but in Mexico, he's well known. He's a curandero of curanderos. And I write about him in my publications. I studied 3 curanderos. They call them the 3 great ones: Niño Fidencio, Teresita, and Don Pedrito Jaramillo. 2 of them died in the early 1900s. That's Don Pedrito and Teresita, and Niño Fidencio's youngest died in 1938. But they have celebrated this festival since the 1930s when he died, and in this town. And so there's thousands of curanderos. They don't even call themselves curanderos. They call themselves materias, mediums, or cajitas, boxes.
Uh-huh.
So we get to this place, there's no motel, so we camp outside of the village, and the festival goes on 24/7, 24 hours, well, actually for 3 days. But it's wild. You remember the Twilight Zone TV series? This is like the Twilight Zone. It's like, wow, I mean, I have never seen anything like this. People on their knees, people going to on pilgrimages, there's dances, there's auctions, there's things everywhere. It's mind-boggling. But we spent the night. I met one of my colleagues from a neighboring university. I was at the university at the time, and his name was Leo Carrillo. And Dr. Carrillo said, I have a mentor. His name is Chenchito, and I want you to meet him. He was also studying curanderismo like I was. I met Chenchito, wonderful wonder. He must have been in his 60s at the time, and we hit it off. We talked a lot, and he said, I want you to be my apprentice. And I said, I can't. I live in Texas and you live in Mexico. He said, well, whenever you come here, I want you to be my assistant. So I was his assistant, and I invited him to join me in Texas and stay with my family. And that lasted for 20 years.
Wow.
About 3 years ago, he called me. I thought he was dead. Somebody told me he had died, but he wasn't. He called me and said, I've been dreaming about you. I hear you live in New Mexico. I want to come see you. I said, fine, come see me. I said, why don't you come in July when I teach my summer class, face-to-face class. It's a 2-week intensive class, and you can speak to the students. So we came, somebody went to pick them up in Mexico in the truck, and they brought him to my class, and he was a hit. He was already close to 90.
Wow.
Well, 2 years ago, he passed away at the age of 90, but he was a wonderful man. But the reason I talk about Chenchito is he taught me the things that my mother couldn't tell me. He knew the history of curanderismo, and he taught me so much, and I got so excited. I started teaching classes. Actually, I started in Texas teaching some classes at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. At the time, it was Texas A&I University. I moved to New Mexico in 1995. I started working in 1996. And soon after that, I started teaching the classes. And I've been teaching classes for more than 20 years. I teach 2 online classes in fall and the spring. And then I teach a face-to-face class in July. It's a 2-week intensive class. I usually draw several people from all over the country. And we have a lot of hands-on activities. We have traditional health fairs, 1 or 2 in the community, and we have hundreds of people that come to these health fairs. So it's been a lot of fun. I've written about 7 publications on the topic, and offer some free classes through Coursera. It's a different platform that works with the university. And, I have thousands of people all over the world that take these classes. And now we're starting some new classes in Spanish beginning in December. Yeah. So it's been fun, and I work with a school of Curanderismo in Cuernavaca, Morelos, Mexico, called CEDEC, Centro de Desarrollo hacia la Comunidad. It's one of the best schools of traditional medicine anywhere, and it's a certificate program. It served hundreds of curanderos, not only from Mexico, but from Central and South America and Europe. And I got my degree at that school, CEDEC. My good friend, Dr. Arturo Ornelas, is the director of the school. He's the president of the school, and he used to bring 30 or 40 curanderos to my classes. I can't afford to bring them anymore, but I bring 3 or 4 or 5 healers from Mexico. I've had healers from Africa, from Uganda, from Gabon. I've had them from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from Ecuador, from El Salvador, from Guatemala, from Peru. In fact, I was in Peru a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I teach a class called Global Perspectives of Traditional Medicine, where I bring different cultures. And there's a lot of similarities on curanderismo and the rituals and the plants that they use.
Right, right. With shamanism. I went to Peru in 2004 when I was going to UCLA, and we went on not a medical mission, but we went to go learn medical Spanish. And so we toured many of the hospitals, but that's where I had one of my awakenings when I went to Machu Picchu.
Yes, I was in Machu Picchu, yes.
It's very, very, the energy is intense there. I totally had a Shirley MacLaine moment.
Yeah, well, that was on my bucket list, and my son and I went, and we flew to Lima and then to Cusco, and we stayed in Cusco for a week, and went to the Sacred Valley, to Machu Picchu, and several other places. Yes,
yeah.
But that's what I've been doing, and since I retired about 3-4 weeks ago, I continue teaching my classes.
That's excellent. So what is curanderismo? Tell us in your own words.
I define curanderismo as traditional medicine. comes from the word curar, which means to heal. And it's a holistic approach to healing mind, body, and spirit. If you go to a physician, they really will work mostly on your body. You go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they work on your mind, rarely on your spirit. But curanderismo is able to incorporate those three elements, body, mind, and spirit. So it's a holistic approach to healing. And in earlier years, there were very few physicians, very few ministers, priests, no counselors. So people relied on the curanderos back then. Things have changed, but still it's alive and well. And there's a revival of curanderismo.
Yeah, I can see it coming even with shamanism. So the curanderos were the healers of the town that people would go to, correct? Kind of like shamans are like the healers of the how can I say, of the people, of the Indians, of the Indios, like in Peru, the little I don't know, communes or
well, they were the healers and the counselors, and that's where people went to, and they were trained by as an apprentice, or people say that some of them had a dawn, a gift to heal.
Yes,
but the reality is that you're not born with that gift. You got to train. So they train as an apprentice under another curandero. But nowadays there's schools, excellent schools like SEDEC, the school that I just mentioned, where you train on making medicine and really quality control. They do research, and so I'm very pleased with how it's improved throughout the years. In earlier years, remember, it's the word of mouth. It's and sometimes that gets distorted, that information. But now there's books, there's research.
Right, so there's the internet.
There's the internet, that's right. In fact, the curanderos, some of them come up with their computers, and the ones I work with, some of them take your blood pressure. They may refer you to a physician if you're really, really sick.
Yeah, I love that. The way I learned about curanderos was when I started practicing as a pediatric nurse practitioner. My first job was in La Puente, California. And I had mostly 99% of my patients only spoke Spanish. And it was a lot of people from Mexico. I also had lots of people from Central America, some people from South America, but mostly Central America and Mexico. That was my patient population. And so what I found was, because this was pre-Obamacare, which is very interesting, I had lots of patients coming to me with amulets on their hands, the red little bracelets. They would put the red little bracelets on the babies. They would put other things on the babies. Sometimes they would come with things that they were anointing. And so they would tell me, I would ask them, like, who put this, or who told you to do this? And they would say the curandera. I went to the curandera. And at that time, I got that a lot, especially even when I was in school. I was doing clinicals in downtown Los Angeles. And I would get people coming in saying, oh, yes, I bathed my baby in tomato sauce or tomato juice because they had a fever, and they would still come with like a smelling of tomato, and with like they hadn't washed the baby after putting them in tomato stuff. And so all these little folklore traditions that they were using, that the curanderos had told them to do. So I started to explore that because I thought it was very, very interesting, and I wanted to understand my patient population much better, and who they were going to in the community. So one of my friends, and at the time I was dating someone who I really didn't understand what he wanted. He really loved me, but I didn't love him. So I had a lot of soul confusion, I guess you could say there. So she's like, oh, you have to go to my curandera. And I was just like, okay, I was open to it. She took me to a place in Rampart. And this woman, and there was a long, and I hear so many stories of this, of people going to curanderas in Los Angeles, and they all kind of start the same way. You go up this long driveway, and there's chairs outside of the driveway, with people waiting to go inside. So you wait until it's your turn and you go in and you see the curandera, and and sometimes this one read cards, and so she also did a limpia on me with the egg type thing, and she got this big bush. And there was some sprays of stuff. It was all very, very interesting. And then I started going to a lot of the botanicas, which were very interesting as well, and to see what they gave, and so of course there was a little bit of black magic going on there sometimes too, which was interesting. So I found it all very, very fascinating. And I also have studied a lot of shamanic practices as well, which I have incorporated into my own healing work and in storytelling, in the storytelling courses that I teach. And then I came across in 2018, because this journey just kind of goes on and it keeps going and you keep learning and things just come to you. And I met one of your students, Erica Beneflor, and I attended one of her readings for her book, and she did a whole she showcased, what curanderismo is, and she did a healing for someone, which was very interesting. And that's, and I learned some more. I got her book. And what I really loved about her book, and what I incorporate, and I even incorporate this in clinic, which I think is great, are the practicas, which is the open, non-judgmental healing. So, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the different types of modalities. And you had said, which is so interesting, is the soul work, how nobody pays attention to the soul. And so tell us more about that and how that works with curanderismo.
Well, you mentioned limpia. Limpias are quite popular in the class, and we have several types of limpias in our classes, especially the online classes that you can find in Coursera, or you can find at the university for the credit courses. One of the curanderos that does a fantastic limpia is Laurencio Nunez from Oaxaca, and he comes just about every summer. He uses 5 elements for the limpia. He says, we cleanse our home, our car, but we never cleanse our spirit, even our body with soap, but not our spirit. He said, our spirit gets damaged. There's energy around us that has been proven, about 8 inches all around our body, that gets damaged when we have a traumatic experience. There's a burglary or a fire, whatever traumatic experience you're suffering, your energy gets damaged, and we want to smooth that energy. This is what Laurencio says. So he starts his limpia with plants, not any plant, but certain plants like rosemary, romero, ruda, rue, albahaca, basil, and he sweeps your body from head to toe, sweeping away any negative vibrations that you might have as a problem with the traumatic experience you had. And he calls your spirit to come back to your body. He may slap you lightly with the branches and call your name and your spirit. The idea is that your spirit or your soul has left your body when you had this traumatic experience, and he's bringing it back to your body.
Right.
After
There's
that,
like a soul loss.
Sometimes they call it soul retrieval. You're retrieving your soul back. And then he uses an egg, and he rubs your egg all over your body in prayer, and then he will break the egg in a glass of water. He might or may not diagnose the egg. Mm-hmm. After the egg, he uses copal, and he does a smudging with copal. Copal is an incense, comes from the copal tree. Mm-hmm. He burns, it's like a rock, and he burns that using a poposhkomi or a saumerio or a copal burner. And he'll go around your body with the smoke of copal. Mm-hmm. After that, he will use mezcal. he'll spray mezcal on you, or water, or Florida water. It just
Agua de
depends on,
Florida. Yeah,
yeah,
that's where I learned about agua de
yeah,
Florida, was from
yeah.
Erica. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, and then he'll give you a candle, and he'll say, take this candle and burn it tonight. And any remaining negative vibrations your body may have will be burned. And he'll tell you other things that you may have to do. And that's it. It's a very comprehensive limpia. Most curanderos don't do all of those elements. They'll use maybe just plants or an egg, or plants and copal. Copal, you can buy different types of copal: black copal, or brown copal, or white copal. The best one I understand is white copal.
Huh.
And there's a copal burner called Popochcomi, Nahuatl, or Saumerio. Usually they're black in color, but in Oaxaca, they're brown. It just depends on where you're at. Mm-hmm. So that's your limpia. And then your platica, a friend of mine who passed away a few years back, Elena Avila, was an expert at platicas. And she would say it's heart-to-heart talk.
Yes.
So you can find out a lot about a person in the platica. And yes. I see the curanderas, many curanderos I work with will do a massage, a traditional massage, and they're talking to you while they're massaging, and they're really checking your body to see if there's anything abnormal in your body.
Yeah. My masseuse used to do that.
Yes. and they'll find out if your problem is psychological or whether it's physical, and they may refer you somewhere. They may deal with the problem after that talk. While they're massaging, they're checking you out. So it's a wonderful technique, and they'll spend 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes I've seen people stay overnight in curandero's home. So they don't spend 10, 15 minutes with you. I mean, they'll spend enough time to find out what really is the problem with you.
Right, so. Right. It's interesting. I started doing it with someone who I was dating, because there were a lot of things going on that were strange, and we were having a lot of paranormal stuff, like just telepathic conversations between us, right? And I knew I wasn't going crazy. So I asked him one day over the phone, I go, do you want to do this plática with me? And he said, yes. So we opened it up, and I was burning the incense that Erica wrote about. And it was amazing. It was just an amazing healing. We had about 2 sessions of pláticas, and then we did a whole journey together, a more shamanic tradition, but it was pretty intense and amazing, and I learned quite a bit about what was going on. And he was unfortunately, like many men in our society today, very, very shut down. Like his heart chakras were shut. It just makes me a little bit emotional even still talking about it. But but it was very powerful. And now I use it in my clinical practice because I'm having and I've spoken about this in other episodes. There's a lot of depression going on in our teenage population. A lot of children, teens wanting to kill themselves and having suicidal ideation, unfortunately. And one of the main places that they go and get their healthcare information is from TikTok, which is now causing people to have tics. I just read a Wall Street Journal article the other day where young teenage girls who are watching TikTok videos of other females who are having tics, they have Tourette's, they are now getting Tourette's, which is very interesting. It's like their brains are being programmed, to have this condition as well. And it's like a mass hypnosis going on, and a mass programming into the subconscious mind, which is again, it is a soul loss. I went ahead and sent that information to the director of psychiatry at Stanford, who also does a lot of research into hypnosis, and he's a pediatric person, a pediatric psychiatrist. And he had said yes, it is kind of like a soul loss, like you're saying, because these young girls are finding something in themselves that they're missing, and they're trying to connect with this person. And so then what is happening, because they've been obsessively watching these videos, TikTok will keep sending these, out to them, and lure them into watching this and stuff. So it is very, very interesting aspect. But in my clinical practice, what I've been doing with parents, because I think a lot of times too, the other thing going on with teens is their parents are not letting them express their identity. They're not letting them be who they are. It's like we have to put a label on everything now. And from the ages of about 10 to about 17 is very pivotal for a young teenager to find themselves and who they are in the world, and kind of have that expression. So what I do in clinical practice is I bring, if I have time, because sometimes this is the other thing, is we only have 15 minutes to see these types of cases. Sometimes I get it about 45 minutes to an hour, and we're able to talk with no judgment and stuff. And it really does help. And it is a lot of storytelling and a lot of sharing. And I can go back into what the parents have experienced when they were teenagers, because what they are doing now is they are creating a type of soul loss in their teens, and in their children. They don't really realize it because of what happened to them when they were at that age. So it is very interesting, and it's helped me, and I'm still kind of working it through and experimenting with it. But I also use it in my storytelling classes, where we open up with talking about your name. It's like, tell a story about your name. So that is the first homework assignment that I give. And I teach the classes through the Amherst method, which is a no judgment class. So there is only positive feedback, what we liked and remembered about your story. And so it's amazing what comes through. People finally feel free to express themselves. So I love that part. And like I said, I'm still trying to see how it works in the clinical setting, and trying to incorporate that. But how can nurse practitioners and healthcare providers use curanderismo in their clinical practice? Like you said, you have people from all over coming in, because and I'm, like I said, I take pieces of it and try to really incorporate it, and I slowly introduce it to my patients. Some people are very open to it, and some people are not. Especially with the going back, because right now healthcare literacy is a huge thing, because a lot of our patients don't know what to do anymore. And which is interesting to me, because even patients with family members who have come from Mexico or Central America, they have these traditions, and I'm like, did they lose them, or do they not feel that they are important? Because I grew up in an Italian family, and we never went to the doctor. My parents took care of everything. And there was a lot of folk traditions that they had used, that they learned, from their childhood, that they would go ahead and incorporate. Like if you cut yourself, they'd get some wine and stick it, on your lip, and you'd suck it. Or if you had an earache, they would use garlic or an olive oil. So there were various methods like that, which are very simple, but I think nowadays they've trained so many people, like it's Tylenol and Motrin, and and you have to have an antibiotic, which so many studies are coming out now, how antibiotics given at a young age are now creating a lot of brain issues, or they've done MRIs on children, and they've seen just changes in the brain because of that. So go ahead and tell us how we could incorporate curanderismo in modern
I think
practice.
what you just described is exactly what I would recommend, that you incorporate it according to the needs of the patient. Some of them will accept it, some of them won't. What I envision is bringing together traditional medicine and allopathic modern medicine, and meeting the needs of the patient. Some of them will be open, some of them will not, but we should look at other models that have incorporated traditional medicine with modern medicine, like Chinese medicine.
Yes.
Ayurvedic medicine from India. those two medicines are pretty much accepted around the world. Mexican traditional medicine isn't yet. And I think what we need to do is to talk about it more, study it more, research it more. I find out that in Mexican traditional medicine, they use simple things to deal with serious problems, and they work. And many people are not insured, and they can't really go to a physician because they can't afford it. So what do they do? They wait until they're really sick and they wind up in emergency rooms
that
are overcrowded and understaffed. And, it just doesn't seem to be working. I mean, our medicine is out of reach of a lot of people that can't afford it.
Right.
But if we empower parents to deal with simple illnesses and know when to refer or when to go to a physician, that might even work out best. And it's a model that I'm hoping eventually we can create. And I'm talking to our medical school here at the University of New Mexico, and they created a center called the Center for Life, and where they do practice a lot of the traditional medicine, and they bring Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine into this center. And it's part of the hospital system, the health science system. Arizona, University of Arizona, with Dr. Andrew Weil, has created an integrated medicine program that's excellent.
I love that.
But I think it needs to be incorporated nationally, and I hope we get there. It's going to take a while, but we need more clinical studies. We need more research, and in Mexico, there's a series of colleges and universities called interculturales. They're really tribal colleges supported by the government. It's like 20 of them throughout the country. And the one at Estado de Mexico, next to Mexico City, has already done that. They've incorporated traditional and modern medicine together. I want to go to this school and find out how they've done that.
Yeah.
And I hope we can learn from them.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Traditionally, for so many years, modern medicine, like medical school, they're just very pharmaceutical based. It's like it's problem treatment, and that's it. And because you only see a patient for 10 to 15 minutes, it's really hard to assess them. Like, you have to really develop your intuition. I used to see so many, like sometimes when I worked in La Puente, I would see 60 patients in a day. And that was before Obamacare. So my intuition had to be really, really good. And I mean, there was a purpose for that, because I could see a child walking in and I knew what was going on with them, and I really, really worked to hone in on that. And also when they came in to teach that. But even the patients, like I said, were so accustomed already. I just want Motrin and Tylenol, and that's it. Even if the kid wasn't sick, and because the Medicare just pays for it, Medicare, Medi-Cal, because many children were dying of seizures and not getting the proper care. If that's true, I'm not exactly sure. Because a lot of the times, like, was that really true? Or was that just to sell a medication? I mean, myself personally, for my parents, because I started studying more holistic medicine and more herbal medicine, it's like, they know. My dad is 87 years old. He knows if he has a cough, he doesn't want to take medication because it damages his kidneys. So what does he do? Ginger tea. Many, many years now. Like, I think I've got them on that ginger tea stuff for forever. And literally, he'll drink ginger tea for a day with honey. Boom, the next day he's fine. And he doesn't even get sick. He has not been sick in I don't know how long, and he told me that. He goes, ever since, but it's because as soon as something comes up, he knows his body, and he will treat it, and he will even, if he eats something raw that is giving him stomach upset, he'll immediately go and take a probiotic, or he'll go and he knows what herbs to do and where, and then he's fine. And I think it's really teaching people that, and it's just incorporating it into your daily practice of what you do, instead of running to the doctor every 5 minutes. And I was like, where did this go wrong? Because I don't remember that really happening before. It's like we've gotten so many people so addicted to the healthcare system instead of just with this whole healthcare literacy, which is a big problem now.
Yeah, but you're exactly correct. I think that we need to empower people to take control of their body and not run to a physician or hospital for any little illness. Nowadays, modern medicine is wonderful for serious illnesses, but a lot of people are not really that sick. They can take care of their body and know when they really need medical attention and incorporate both of them. In third world countries, I mean, they do what your dad does. Because, they see a physician when they're really sick, when they need medical attention, and not have to pop pills for just about everything that's wrong with them.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe we can come up with a model that would meet the needs of the people. And look at the number of immigrants that come to this country. There's millions of them that don't have insurance, and what do they do? And they're bringing a lot of their traditions, but when they come here, they find out that we don't have those traditions.
Right. And I think they abandoned them, which is very sad. And so that's where the disconnect is happening. They're no longer, because I think either they're trying to get Americanized or I don't know what that is, but that would be interesting to explore. And for anybody out there who's wanting to do like a study for their doctorate, that would be a good study to see what is happening.
We need more studies. We need more research. We need to prove that some of the things are valid that we do. And I'm just amazed at how people are able to cope with different illnesses. It's just incredible. In Guatemala, they use those little trouble dolls for problems, and it works with kids.
The worry dolls. Does it really talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I'll tell you my experience with them. Several years ago, I was in Chiapas, which borders Guatemala, and San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas. And I went into this store, and there was this tiny lady, Mayan, and she spoke a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of English, and she had these little boxes with 6 dolls. And I said, what are those? Those voodoos? She said, no, those are not voodoo dolls. Those are trouble dolls. She said, for example, I have 11 kids at home. I said, what? And she said, yep, 11 kids. I work all day here. My husband goes back and forth to Guatemala. At the end of the day, I go home and these kids have problems. They want to talk to me. I don't have time. I have to cook for them. So I give them a box with these dolls. At night, they take out these dolls, 1 doll for every problem. They talk to the dolls about their problems. The idea is that the dolls carry the problems on their back. In the morning, the kids wake up rid of 6 problems. And I said, well, I have a couple of teenagers. You got anything for teenagers? She said, yeah. The teenagers get 7 dolls and they do the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what about grown-ups like me? She said, yep. But you get 9 dolls and you do the same thing, but you burn the box with the dolls, therefore you burn the problems.
So what do you do? So the dolls are small or?
Yeah, they're real small, and they come in a little box, a wooden box, and it's and you take them out of the box and you talk to them about the problems and put them back, and then during the night the dolls take care of the problems. But
I love that.
I keep thinking, wow, think about that. I mean, simple things to deal with some of the problems kids have.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine said, look, have you heard of the ritual on 7 knots? I said, no. Or in Spanish, it's called El Rito de los Siete Nudos. He said, take a ribbon, a red ribbon, about 1.5 feet. You tie a knot at the middle of that ribbon for the first problem, and you can pray if you want to. You think about your problem. You go 2 inches to the right, tie a second knot for the second problem, and then to the left, and then to the right, and then to the left, until you get to the end. And then you tie both ends together, and you've got 7 knots. You put them in a container, glass container, like a mason jar, a peanut butter jar. You go to the backyard, you bury it, therefore you bury your problems. It's very simple. He said, and then another friend of mine said, when I was growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, and he used to come home and he'd yell at my mom and push her around, and he'd yell at us. And then there were times he would come home and he would go to the backyard, and we would sneak behind him and we'd hide in the bushes. And he would lie on the ground on his stomach, and he would take out his pocket knife and he would dig a hole on the earth. And then he would yell obscenities at that hole, and then he would cover it over. And then he would come back to the house and he was sweet as ever. He was getting rid of all that anger and all that.
Well, people keep it bottled up.
But think about that. It doesn't cost any money. It's just simple things that people can be very creative to deal with problems.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm just amazed how creative our people are. They've been able to create these things because they can't afford to go to a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. They deal with their own problems.
Yeah. And that is such a great thing to do, because nowadays it's all, just go to the psychologist. And kids don't want to do that.
Well, how much are you going to, if you're not insured, how much are you going to pay?
Exactly.
A couple of $100 an hour?
Right. Yeah. For a good psychologist. Yeah. I mean, and nowadays, like, people are so overwhelmed. You think, okay, going to that psychologist, is that person really going to help you? Is that person, I had a patient come in, and this is really interesting. She was young. She was like preteen age, and her father was moving away. Okay. And she said that she felt like her insides were hurting, like she felt like she was dying inside. And I'm very empathic, and I could pick up her heartbreak. I mean, she was like so brokenhearted, because she had been very close to her father. Her parents didn't live together. And her mom was there, and I was like, whoa. I just could feel this heartbreak and stuff. And I had told her, I go, well, why don't you write him like a love letter and tell him how you really feel? And we also went over like the positives and the negatives of him moving away. And so I encouraged her just to keep a notebook and to also write her father this letter. And she had a choice of either burning it or getting rid of it, or just actually giving it to him. And I encouraged her. I go, I think you should just give it to him so he knows how he feel. I mean, the mother was feeling the heartbreak, and I was feeling the heartbreak. I mean, but is he really able, maybe if he reads your letter, he can also feel what you're feeling too. And it helps her to kind of get rid of that pain in a way, and divulge it. And that's why storytelling is really great with that as well. But I love the little doll thing. I love that idea.
Well, I mean,
I have several worry dolls from Peru that I bought. I have a whole bag full still.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm amazed how creative people can be to deal with their problems. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible. The ribbon, I mean, doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, love that.
Or just digging a hole and yelling at
in the ground and yelling at it.
And then cover it.
So cool.
You leave it. Where did they learn that? That's incredible.
I know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I actually want to talk about Dia De Los Muertos, which is I love that time of the year. For us, it's right after Halloween. What is it? November 1st and 2nd, correct?
October 31st, November 1st and 2nd. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's great growing up here in Los Angeles. Like, I've attended many events. They had an event in downtown a few years ago where they had many altars in one of the parks. It was super cool. And then last year I happened to be in Boyle Heights, and several of the people, because it was still the pandemic, they had altars outside of their homes. Like I was just like, wow, this is so neat. I love that. And I absolutely love that tradition. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Well, we have a module on Dia de los Muertos and healing grief. Some people don't grieve as like they want to, but when they celebrate Dia de los Muertos, it gives them a chance to grieve and to remember their loved ones. And it's Dia de los Muertos has made a revival not only in Mexico, and I've been to Dia de los Muertos in Morelia, Michoacan, and have been at the cemetery outside of Mexico City celebrating Dia de los Muertos, and have been just amazed how important it's been in Mexico and how important it is in the U.S. now. There's parades now. I mean, in the major cities, in most major cities where you have large Latino populations. And the idea goes back to the Aztecs way back. I mean, that believed in 13 skies and 9 hills. But they believed that their loved ones would come home for 3 days. They'd be with them for 72 hours. And that's the time they would celebrate and remember the loved ones that passed on. Well, that concept has changed somewhat with the Spaniards arriving and the Catholic Church. And now they've added religion to the celebration, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And there are altars where they have photos of the loved ones and food that they liked.
Right, or their vices. That's
the
one
vices,
I love.
Cigars, cigarettes, or a bottle of tequila.
Alcohol. Yeah,
I was at the cemetery. I mentioned I was at the cemetery with a lady that was there all night, and this was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "Why do you have your cigarettes and bottle of tequila?" She said, "Well, my late husband smoked and had tequila. Now I miss him so much that I'm taking a drink of tequila and I'm smoking a cigarette." And then there were mariachis at the cemetery, and people were dancing, and you remember the good times of your loved ones. It's making a comeback, like I said before, and that's wonderful because people are now grieving, but they're remembering their loved ones, and you don't forget, because every year they'll be with you for 72 hours. So you're able to enjoy them. You have marigolds to light the way down, and they don't get lost. They'll see the marigolds that are bright. And so it's a wonderful celebration. It's changed, and that's okay. We all change with times. But it's a good time of the year. And I love to see it celebrated at all over this country. Like the Temazcals are making a comeback also. Yes. Not only those are sweat lodges, not only in Mexico, but also here in the US. We have several Temazcals in Albuquerque now. And in one place, La Cola Placita, Albino Garcia, a good friend of mine, has built 2 Temazcals, a Native American Temazcal because he works with urban natives there, and then a Mexican Temazcal, a little bit different philosophies, but he's got 2 Temazcals, and you have a choice to go into the Native Temazcal or the Mexican Temazcal. Huh. And so it's wonderful. There's a lot of things that happen in a sweat lodge.
The sweat lodges are really, really cool. I mean, I've not been to a sweat lodge. I mean, I used to really love doing the which just your typical steam room or sauna at the gym, which I used to love. And I felt it really helped me, because you even get rid of stuff there. But the sweat lodges, talk a little bit about those, because those are so interesting. Because you kind of, in a way, go into a hypnotic trance, and then you kind of see your inner demons in a way, or your shadow. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, the Mexican sweat lodge called Temazcal is a permanent structure. It looks like an igloo, and it has a small door, and you go into it, and it usually will accommodate anywhere between 10 to 20 people, no more than 20. Nowadays, some of them have benches for people that have problems with their knees. You can sit on the bench. Most of them don't have a bench. You sit on the ground or you sit on the concrete, and it's dark. So, and there's chants. There's a leader, a Temazcal leader that leads the ceremonies, the chants, and then you have a chance to talk about whatever. It's all dark. You can cry, you can yell, you can scream, whatever makes you feel better. And there's a fire opposite the door at the end, and they have lava rocks, and the fire creates a steam, and you pour water, so you have a steam bath. So you're perspiring all your toxins, And it's very, very therapeutic, both mentally and physically. You get out of the Temazcal after about 30, 40, 50 minutes or so. And many times you get a massage and you can
Nice.
sleep and you can, it's just so relaxing.
That's amazing.
And so therapeutic.
Yeah.
I've been to both the native Temazcal. The Mexican Temazcal is feminine. It's like you're going into the womb of Mother Earth.
I love that.
And the native Temazcal is more masculine. It's a stronger Temazcal. And so I've been to both of them, and I enjoy both of them. And but it's incredible. And now I've seen some of the Temazcals in Mexico that are part of a spa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit different, but it's okay. You pay more than you would at a community Temazcal. In Oaxaca, many homes used to have Temazcals attached to their homes.
Wow.
You would birth in a Temazcal, have your baby. What a wonderful place to have a baby. Nice and warm. You stay there like for 40 days or so. You would eat in Temazcal. You would have baptism in Temazcal, confirmations, weddings that would be part of the Temazcal. So the whole year was centered around this Temazcal. It's so changed somewhat. You still find some Temazcals attached to homes, but not as much. Things change.
Yeah.
But it is making a comeback all over Mexico and also in this country. We've had Mexicanos come here and build the Temazcals and show us how to run the Temazcals.
Yeah, that just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to Dia De Los Muertos just for a second, because it has gotten commercialized too. With the whole Disney. I did love the Coco movie for Disney. I thought it was pretty fun. And until I worked at I worked at a federally qualified clinic, and they played it like 3 times a day, every day. And I was just like, okay, I'm done with Coco. So, but then even now for Halloween, we see a lot of the Dia de los Muertos products, where about 10 years ago, not so much, but now it's like all over the place. And, before, if you showed up at a party and you were, Frida or Dia de los Muertos or whatever, you were original. Like I dressed up as Frida, I think back in 2010, 2011, at the West Hollywood Halloween parade, which was very large at the time. And I was like a celebrity, and I was just like, I didn't even have a costume. I just had the stuff and I threw it together. And I was just walking down the street with a fake cigarette, and kind of feeling the Frida. And people were like, Frida! People were coming up to me. It was like I was a celebrity. It was pretty awesome. But now everybody dresses like that. So it's like not unique.
Yeah, you're right, though. It's some of it is commercialized, but that's okay, because people have changed, and even in Mexico, it's somewhat commercialized. Dia de los Muertos in Mexico City, you've got at the Zócalo, you have hundreds of altars and they have parades, but that's all right, because people are, I think the concept is there. It's remembering your loved ones that have passed away. And in some of your villages, it's still the traditional way of celebrating Dia de los Muertos. People turn their garage into an altar for their loved ones.
So awesome.
And so they remember their loved ones and they talk about them. So you're never really forgotten. And that's the whole idea, that you're remembering your loved ones once a year, and you have them with you for 72 hours that you're enjoying their company. And then they'll go home, and life goes on. But I think that's what's wonderful about Dia de los Muertos, that you're celebrating the life that person had, and the good times that you had with your loved one that passed on. And even your pets are celebrated now, and that's great.
I think
you have a dog that was part of the family that passed away. You celebrate their contributions that made you feel good, or a cat or a dog or any other pet.
I love that. Yeah. Well, this has been such a fun conversation, Cheo. Where can people find more about you? I will have your links on the show notes.
I put my email on the link, and if they're interested in the summer course, we offer it to the community through continuing education also, in addition to the credit courses, so they can come here for when when COVID is over and we're face to face, and I would love to invite them to our course.
Yes, I would love to come
It's
down.
usually in July, and we'll have some wonderful healers here and some hands-on workshops in the afternoon. It's half a day lectures and presentations, and then the other half a day hands-on. And the evening we go to Temazcals. We have choices of 2 or 3 good Temazcals.
Neat.
And then we have a health fair, traditional health fair, and they can have some work done on them. And then we also offer 4 courses through Coursera that are free. They'll try to sell your certificate for $49, but if you don't want to pay the $49, just audit the course, and then they won't bother you.
Oh, cool.
It's not the university; it's a Coursera platform. We work together with them, and now we're going to offer the course totally in Spanish.
I love that.
Beginning in December. So we have
great.
4 courses. One of them deals with the body, the other one with the soul, the energy, and then the other one with medicinal plants, and the 4th one, global perspectives, where we have Afro-Cuban, Afro-Puerto Rican, Peruvian, and Native American, and Mayan. So that's the global perspectives of the courses. So 4 courses with wonderful videos that we've done in our studios here with curanderos. So you actually will see the curanderos working.
Love it. Thank you so much, Cheo. And thank you for listening, everyone. Till next time on Nurses and Hypochondriacs. Bye-bye.
Adios.